In the year 2157, a team of astronomers at the Kepler Space Observatory detected an anomalous signal emanating from a distant star system. The signal pulsed with an eerie regularity that could not be explained by any known natural phenomenon. News of the discovery spread like wildfire, igniting a fierce debate among the scientific community and world leaders. Some believed the signal could be evidence of intelligent life and advocated for initiating contact. Others urged caution, arguing that an advanced alien civilization might pose an existential threat to humanity. As the debate raged on, a daring mission was launched to investigate the source of the signal. The fastest ship ever constructed, the Odyssey, was outfitted for the journey. The crew, comprised of the brightest minds and bravest souls humanity had to offer, knew they were embarking on a mission that would change the course of history. As the Odyssey approached the signal's origin, tensions were high. No one knew what to expect. Would they find an advanced civilization eager to make contact? Or would they discover something more ominous? The answer came sooner than expected. As the ship dropped out of hyperspace, the crew was stunned by what they saw. A massive alien vessel hung in orbit around the star, dwarfing the Odyssey in size and technological sophistication. It was clear this was no mere space exploration craft. It was a ship of refugees. The aliens, it turned out, were on the brink of extinction. A devastating war had ravaged their homeworld, forcing them to flee into the depths of space in search of a new home. Their resources depleted and their population dwindling, they had sent out a distress signal as a last resort. Now, the fate of an entire alien race rested in the hands of the Odyssey's crew. They faced a monumental decision, one that would not only determine the future of the aliens, but of humanity itself. As the crew hailed the alien ship and waited for a response, they couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The question that had haunted humanity for centuries was about to be answered. We are not alone in the universe. What remained to be seen was whether this discovery would lead to a new era of cooperation and understanding, or to humanity's downfall. The alien ship loomed before them, an enigma waiting to be unraveled. The crew of the Odyssey steeled themselves, knowing that the next few moments would be critical. They had trained for this day, but nothing could have fully prepared them for the weight of this moment. Commander Nadia Ivanova cleared her throat and spoke into the comm system, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. Alien vessel, this is Commander Nadia Ivanova of the Earth ship Odyssey. We come in peace, responding to your distress signal. Please acknowledge. Seconds ticked by with no response. The bridge was silent save for the hum of the ship's systems and the crew's tense breathing. Then, just as Nadia was about to repeat her message, a crackling sound filled the air. An image flickered to life on the main view screen. The face that greeted them was unlike anything they had ever seen. Luminous eyes blinked out from a slender, angular visage. Translucent skin shimmered with an opalescent sheen. When the alien spoke, its voice was a melodic trill that seemed to bypass their ears and resonate directly in their minds. Greetings, people of Earth, the alien said. I am Zoran, emissary of the Filari. We are grateful for your response to our distress call. As you have surmised, we are refugees seeking asylum. Our civilization faces annihilation, and you may be our last hope. Nadia exchanged glances with her crew, seeing her own shock and awe reflected in their faces. She took a deep breath and replied, Zoran, on behalf of the people of Earth, I welcome you. We are honored to be in contact with another sentient species, and we will do what we can to assist you. Please, tell us more about your situation. As Zoran began to recount the tragic tale of the Filari's plight, Nadia couldn't shake the feeling that this was a pivotal moment, not just for her crew, but for all of humanity. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges and difficult decisions, but one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The bridge thrummed with a palpable energy as every crew member hung on Zoran's every word, absorbing the staggering implications of this historic encounter. Nadia found herself marveling at the resilience and determination of the Filari, who had risked everything to seek help from a species they knew nothing about. It was a humbling reminder of the indomitable spirit that could arise in the face of even the most overwhelming odds, a spirit that she recognized as being quintessentially human. In that moment, despite the vast differences between their species, Nadia felt a profound connection to Zoran and the Filari. She knew that the coming days and weeks would test that connection, and that there would be those on both sides who would oppose any alliance between their peoples. But as she looked around at her crew, seeing the resolve in their eyes, she knew they would face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and compassion. For now, their immediate task was clear: to provide what aid and comfort they could to these weary travelers from the stars, and to set in motion a chain of events that would forever alter the destiny of both their civilizations. The universe had brought them together for a reason. As the commander of the first human ship to make contact with an alien race, Nadia felt the weight of that responsibility settling on her shoulders. But she also felt a thrill of excitement and hope stirring in her heart. Together, humans and Filari, they had a chance to forge a new path, to learn from each other, to grow, and to build something greater than either of them could achieve alone. The journey would not be easy, but Nadia had a feeling it would be the most important and rewarding endeavor of their lives. With renewed determination, she turned her attention back to Zoran, ready to take the first steps on that journey. "Tell me," she said, "what do you need most urgently? We'll start there, and together, we'll find a way forward." Zoran's eyes shimmered with gratitude, and Nadia could have sworn she saw a glimmer of hope there too. "Thank you, Commander Ivanova," Zoran said. "Your kindness and generosity give me faith that our peoples were meant to find each other. With your help, perhaps we can not only save the Filari, but also build a brighter future for both our kinds." Nadia nodded, a smile tugging at her lips despite the gravity of the situation. "I believe that too, Zoran," she said. "Let's get to work." And with that, a new chapter in the story of humanity and the Filari began, one that would be written in the stars and remembered for generations to come. As the Odyssey escorted the Filari ship back to Earth, the news of their arrival spread rapidly, sparking a mix of excitement, fear, and confusion. Never before had humanity been faced with such indisputable proof of extraterrestrial life. The implications were staggering. Upon entering Earth's orbit, the Filari ship was directed to dock at the International Space Station, which had been hastily prepared to accommodate their guests. A delegation of Earth's top scientists, diplomats, and military leaders was assembled to greet the aliens and begin the delicate process of establishing relations between their civilizations. Commander Ivanova and her crew were hailed as heroes, their names etched into history as the first humans to make contact with an alien species. But as the initial euphoria wore off, the reality of the situation began to sink in. The Filari were not just visitors. They were refugees, fleeing a catastrophic war that had left their homeworld in ruins. In the days that followed, Zoran and a small group of Filari representatives met with Earth's leaders to discuss their plight and negotiate the terms of their asylum. The aliens were reluctant to share too many details about their technology or the specifics of the conflict that had driven them from their home, but they made it clear that they had nowhere else to go. Some on Earth argued that taking in the Filari was too great a risk, that their presence could destabilize human society, or even invite the very conflict they were fleeing. Others saw in the Filari an opportunity for unprecedented scientific and cultural exchange, a chance to learn from a civilization far more advanced than our own. As the debates raged on, the Filari themselves remained largely sequestered on the space station, their ship tethered nearby. Though they were grateful for the refuge Earth offered, it was clear they were uneasy in their new surroundings, unsure of their place in a world so very different from their own. Commander Ivanova, who had become the de facto liaison between the Filari and Earth's leadership, did her best to bridge the gap between their cultures, working tirelessly to build trust and understanding on both sides. She spent long hours with Zoran, learning about the Filari's history, their customs, and the dire circumstances that had brought them to Earth. Gradually, a picture began to emerge of a civilization that had once been mighty and proud, but had been brought to the brink of annihilation by a war that had started as a simple dispute over resources and escalated into a conflict that engulfed their entire star system. The Filari had fought valiantly, but in the end, they had been forced to flee, leaving behind their homes, their history, and most of their population. Now they were adrift in an unfamiliar galaxy, their advanced technology and knowledge their only remaining assets. They knew they had much to offer humanity, but they were also wary of being exploited or misunderstood. As the negotiations stretched on, tensions rose both on Earth and among the Filari. Some human factions began to openly protest the aliens' presence, while others clamored for access to their technology and resources. Among the Filari, there were those who advocated for a more assertive approach, insisting that they should leverage their knowledge to secure a stronger position in their dealings with Earth. Through it all, Commander Ivanova and her team worked to maintain the fragile peace, knowing that the fate of both their civilizations hung in the balance. They knew that if they could find a way to work together, humans and Filari could achieve extraordinary things. But if they allowed mistrust and fear to take hold, the consequences could be catastrophic. As the days turned into weeks, small breakthroughs began to emerge. Human scientists and Filari engineers started working together, cautiously at first, but with growing enthusiasm as they discovered shared passions and complementary skills. Diplomats on both sides found common ground in their desire for peace and stability. But even as these seeds of cooperation were sown, shadows loomed on the horizon. There were still those on both sides who viewed the other with suspicion and hostility. And lurking in the background was the ever-present threat of the war that had driven the Filari from their home. A war whose echoes could still be felt, even across the vast expanse of space. Commander Ivanova knew that navigating these treacherous waters would take all her skill, all her dedication, and all her faith in the fundamental goodness of both their species. She also knew she couldn't do it alone. It would take the combined efforts of humans and Filari alike, working in concert towards a shared vision of the future. Looking out at the blue curve of the Earth below and the gleaming Filari ship beside the station, Nadia felt the weight of the task ahead. But she also felt a flicker of hope burning in her heart. They had come so far already, bridging gaps of culture, language, and even biology to find common ground. If they could keep moving forward, one step at a time, perhaps they could not only ensure the survival of the Filari, but also forge a new era of peace and prosperity for all. It wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks, misunderstandings, and moments when the fragile trust they had built threatened to shatter. But Nadia was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. For in the Filari, she saw not just allies, but a mirror held up to humanity itself, a reminder of how far they had come, and how far they still had to go. With a deep breath, Commander Ivanova turned from the window and headed to her next meeting. Another small step on the long, winding path to a future that was yet to be written. A future that, despite all the uncertainty and danger, held the promise of something extraordinary. A future where humans and Filari stood together, united in their diversity, stronger for their shared struggles, and reaching together for the stars. As the negotiations between humans and the Filari progressed, a rift began to form among Earth's leaders. Some, swayed by the potential benefits of access to advanced alien technology, advocated for offering the Filari a permanent home on Earth in exchange for sharing their scientific knowledge. Others, fearful of the potential consequences of integrating an alien species into human society, pushed for helping the Filari find a new home elsewhere in the galaxy. The debates grew increasingly heated, with each side accusing the other of either short-sightedness or xenophobia. Commander Ivanova found herself caught in the middle, trying to balance the competing interests and maintain the fragile trust that had been established with the Filari. Zoran and the other Filari representatives watched the human deliberations with a mixture of hope and trepidation. They knew that their fate hinged on the decisions being made, but they also understood the gravity of what they were asking. They were, after all, seeking not just temporary shelter, but a chance to rebuild their civilization from the ground up. In an effort to sway opinion in their favor, the Vilari made a stunning offer. In exchange for asylum on Earth and assistance in establishing a new homeland, they would share the full breadth of their scientific and technological knowledge with humanity. The offer was a game changer. The Vilari's technology was centuries ahead of Earth's in many fields, from energy production to propulsion to medicine. Access to such knowledge could spur a new era of human progress and prosperity, catapulting our civilization into the future. But it was also a risk. Some feared that the Vilari's advanced capabilities, if misused, could also give rise to new forms of destruction and oppression. There was no guarantee that all of humanity would use this knowledge wisely or ethically. Despite these concerns, the lure of the Vilari's offer proved too strong to resist. Gradually, a consensus began to emerge in favor of forging a deeper partnership with the aliens. Even many of those who had initially been skeptical came to see the potential benefits as outweighing the risks. And so, a new phase in human-Vilari relations began. Joint research teams were established, combining the brightest minds from both species to tackle some of the most pressing scientific and technological challenges facing both civilizations. Vilari engineers worked alongside human colleagues to develop new forms of clean energy, more efficient spacecraft, and medical treatments for diseases that had long plagued both our worlds. Slowly but surely, trust between our species grew. For every point of tension or misunderstanding, there were moments of breakthrough and shared triumph. Humans and Vilari began to see in each other not just allies, but kindred spirits, fellow travelers on the great cosmic journey of discovery and growth. But even as this partnership blossomed, shadows from the Vilari's past loomed large. The more human scientists learned about the advanced capabilities of Vilari technology, the more they began to wonder about the true nature of the conflict that had driven them from their home. Bits and pieces of the story began to emerge, painting a picture of a war that was not just devastating in its scale, but disturbing in its implications. There were whispers of weapons capable of unthinkable destruction, of technologies that blurred the line between organic life and artificial intelligence, and of ethical lines crossed in the pursuit of victory at any cost. As these revelations came to light, some on Earth began to question whether they had made a mistake in allying themselves so closely with the Vilari. They argued that if the aliens had been willing to go to such extremes in their own conflict, what was to stop them from doing the same to humanity if our interests ever diverged? Commander Ivanova and her closest allies pushed back against these concerns, arguing that the Vilari had shown nothing but good faith in their dealings with Earth, and that judging them by the actions of their past was unfair and short-sighted. They pointed to the many benefits that had already emerged from the partnership and the potential for even greater progress if they stayed the course. But the seeds of doubt had been planted, and they continued to grow despite the best efforts of those who believed in the alliance. Even as joint human-Vilari teams made breathtaking discoveries and developed technologies that promised to transform life on Earth for the better, the specter of mistrust haunted their every step. For Commander Ivanova, balancing these competing impulses became an increasingly delicate dance. She spent long hours in meetings with both human and Vilari leaders, trying to address concerns on both sides while keeping the larger goal in sight. She knew that if the partnership could weather these storms, the payoff would be immense, not just for Earth and the Vilari, but for the future of intelligent life in the universe. But she also knew that the margin for error was razor-thin. One misstep, one breach of trust, could bring the whole delicate edifice crashing down. As the tensions mounted, Ivanova found herself increasingly relying on her bond with Zoran, the Vilari leader who had become both a trusted colleague and a close friend. In the quiet moments between crises, they would often speak of their hopes and fears for the future, and of the weight of responsibility they both felt as leaders in this uncharted new era. It was during one such conversation that Zoran revealed something that shook Ivanova to her core. The Vilari, he confided, had not been entirely forthcoming about the reasons for their exodus from their homeworld. Yes, there had been a war, and yes, It had been devastating. But there was more to the story. A secret that the Filari had kept hidden, even from their closest human allies. Before Ivanova could press for more details, an urgent message came through on her communicator. There had been an incident at one of the joint research facilities, an explosion that had caused significant damage and injured several human and Filari scientists. As she raced to the scene, Ivanova's mind reeled with the implications of Zoran's revelation and the new crisis that had erupted. She knew that the next few hours and days would be critical, that the future of the human-Filari alliance, and perhaps the fate of both their species, hung in the balance. But even in that moment of uncertainty and fear, she found within herself a renewed sense of determination. She had not come this far, had not fought so hard for this vision of a shared future, to let it slip away now. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever secrets the Filari had yet to reveal, she would face them head-on, with the courage and resolve that had brought her to this moment. For she knew, with a clarity that cut through all the noise and confusion, that this was a fight worth winning, a struggle not just for the survival of two species, but for the soul of the universe itself, and she would not rest until that future was secure, no matter the cost. In the aftermath of the explosion at the joint research facility, tensions between humans and Filari were running high. As investigators combed through the wreckage, searching for clues as to the cause of the incident, speculation ran rampant on both sides. Some humans suggested that the explosion was the result of Filari sabotage, a deliberate attempt to undermine the partnership and steal sensitive human technologies. Others pointed the finger at human extremist groups who had opposed the alliance from the start, arguing that they had finally taken their resistance to a violent new level. Amidst this backdrop of fear and suspicion, Commander Ivanova worked tirelessly to hold the fragile coalition together. She shuttled between human and Filari leaders, calling for calm and urging all parties to withhold judgment until the facts could be established. But even as she worked to maintain the peace, Ivanova couldn't shake the sense that something wasn't adding up. The timing of the explosion, coming just as Zoran had hinted at a deeper secret in the Filari's past, seemed too coincidental to ignore. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, Ivanova called a private meeting with Zoran and a handful of her most trusted human and Filari colleagues. In a secure room deep within the space station, they gathered to hear the truth that Zoran had kept hidden for so long. The story that unfolded was one of tragedy, desperation, and ultimately of hope. Zoran revealed that the war that had driven the Filari from their home had not been a simple conflict between nations or factions, but a struggle for the very soul of their civilization. On one side had been those who sought to use the Filari's advanced technologies for the betterment of all, to create a society of abundance and enlightenment where every individual could reach their full potential. On the other had been those who saw in those same technologies the means to dominate and control, to create a hierarchy where the few ruled over the many with an iron fist. As the war had raged, both sides had pushed the boundaries of science and ethics in pursuit of victory. Weapons of unimaginable destructive power had been unleashed, while advancements in biotechnology and artificial intelligence had blurred the lines between organic life and machine. In the end, it was the champions of freedom and equality who had prevailed, but at a terrible cost. The Filari homeworld had been left in ruins, its ecosystem ravaged and its population decimated. Those who remained had been forced to flee, seeking refuge among the stars. But even in exile, the Filari had not been able to escape the shadows of their past. The explosion at the research facility, Zoran revealed, had not been an accident or an act of sabotage, but the work of a rogue faction of Filari who still clung to the old ways, who saw in humanity's trust a weakness to be exploited. This faction, small but ruthless, had been working in secret to undermine the partnership between humans and Filari, hoping to steal advanced human technologies and use them to resurrect their dreams of dominance and control. The explosion had been a test, a proof of concept for a larger plan that threatened to unravel everything the two species had worked so hard to build. As Ivanova and her colleagues listened to Zoran's tale, A grim realization settled over the room. The challenges they had faced so far, the mistrust, the tensions, the setbacks, had been but a prelude to the true battle that lay ahead. To defeat this threat and secure the future they had envisioned, humans and Vilari would have to work together like never before. They would have to pool their resources, their knowledge, and their resolve, and confront the darkness head-on. It was a daunting prospect, but as Ivanova looked around the room at the faces of her colleagues, human and Vilari alike, she saw in them a determination that matched her own. They had come too far, had sacrificed too much, to let this dream slip away now. Together, they began to plan their next moves, the investigations that needed to be launched, the security measures that needed to be put in place, the truths that needed to be told to their respective peoples. They knew that the road ahead would be long and hard, that there would be struggles and setbacks and moments when all seemed lost. But they also knew that they were fighting for something worth defending, a vision of a future where humans and Vilari stood together as equals, partners in the great cosmic journey of discovery and growth. A future where the shadows of the past no longer held sway, where the light of reason and compassion shone bright. And so, as the meeting adjourned and each member went their separate ways, they carried with them a renewed sense of purpose and a steadfast commitment to the cause they shared. The battle was just beginning, but they would face it as one. A united front against the forces of darkness, a beacon of hope in a universe that needed it now more than ever. Little did they know, however, just how close those forces were to striking their next blow. Even as Ivanova and her team worked to shore up their defenses and root out the rogue Vilari elements, a new threat was gathering on the horizon, one that would test the strength of their bond and the limits of their resolve like never before. In a distant corner of the station, a shadowy figure moved with purpose, their features obscured by a hooded cloak. They slipped unnoticed through the bustling corridors, their destination known only to themselves. As they reached a nondescript doorway in a seldom-used section of the station, they paused, glancing furtively over their shoulder to ensure they hadn't been followed. Then, with a quick series of taps on a concealed keypad, they slipped inside, the door sliding shut behind them with a soft hiss. Inside, the room was dark, lit only by the glow of a handful of computer screens. The figure moved to the largest of these, their gloved hands flying over the keyboard as they entered a complex series of commands. On the screen, an image flickered to life, a schematic of the space station, with a series of red dots highlighting key locations. The figure studied the diagram intently, their lips moving silently as they committed the details to memory. Then, with a final keystroke, the screen went blank, plunging the room back into darkness. The figure turned, their cloak swirling around them as they made their way back to the door. They paused once more on the threshold, their hand hovering over the keypad. In that moment, a flicker of doubt crossed their shadowed features, a momentary hesitation, a questioning of the path they had chosen. But the moment passed as quickly as it had come, replaced by a steely resolve. With a final glance over their shoulder, the figure slipped out into the corridor, disappearing into the crowds as if they had never been there at all. The stage was set, the pieces were in motion. The great game was about to enter its next phase, and the fate of two species hung in the balance. The only question that remained was who would emerge victorious, and at what cost that victory would come. In the days following the revelation of the rogue Vilari faction, Commander Ivanova and her team worked around the clock to unravel the full extent of the threat. They pored over security logs, interviewed potential witnesses, and chased down every lead, no matter how seemingly insignificant. But despite their best efforts, the trail seemed to grow colder with each passing hour. Whoever was behind the plot had covered their tracks well, leaving few clues as to their identity or their ultimate goals. It was a frustrating and exhausting process, but Ivanova refused to give up. She knew that the stakes were too high, that the future of the human-Vilari partnership hinged on their ability to root out this hidden enemy and stop them before they could strike again. As the investigation stretched on, however, a new development emerged that threatened to upend everything. In a routine medical examination of a Filari scientist who had been injured in the explosion, human doctors made a shocking discovery. Embedded within the scientist's body were advanced cybernetic implants, technology far beyond anything the Filari had previously revealed to their human partners. The implants appeared to interface directly with the scientist's nervous system, granting them enhanced physical and cognitive abilities. The implications were staggering. If the Filari possessed this kind of technology, it meant that they had been holding back on the full extent of their scientific capabilities. It raised questions about what other secrets they might be keeping, and whether their intentions toward humanity were truly as benevolent as they claimed. As news of the discovery spread, it sent shockwaves through both the human and Filari communities. Some humans saw it as a betrayal, proof that the Filari could not be trusted and that the partnership was doomed from the start. Others argued that it was a misunderstanding, that the Filari must have had their reasons for keeping the technology secret. On the Filari side, reactions were similarly mixed. Some saw the revelation as a necessary step towards greater transparency and trust between the two species. Others feared that it would only fuel human suspicions and make the partnership even more difficult to maintain. Amidst the swirling controversy, Commander Ivanova found herself once again in the eye of the storm. She knew that how she responded to this latest development would be crucial in determining the future course of the relationship. After much soul-searching and consultation with her closest advisors, Ivanova called for a meeting of the Joint Human-Filari Leadership Council. In a room filled with tension and uncertainty, she took the floor and delivered a speech that would go down in history. She spoke of the challenges that both their species had faced, of the wars and conflicts that had nearly torn them apart. She spoke of the incredible potential that their partnership represented, of the advances in science and technology that could transform the lives of billions. But she also spoke of the need for honesty and transparency, for a true partnership built on trust and mutual respect. She acknowledged the fears and concerns on both sides, but urged them to rise above their differences and focus on the greater good. And then, in a moment that stunned the room to silence, Ivanova revealed a secret of her own. She, too, had been holding back information, not out of a desire to deceive, but out of a fear of how it would be received. The secret was this: human scientists had been working on their own advanced cybernetic technology that in some ways surpassed even that of the Filari. But rather than using it for military or intelligence purposes, they had been developing it for medical applications, to help those with disabilities or chronic illnesses live fuller, more independent lives. Ivanova's revelation changed the tenor of the conversation in an instant. Suddenly, both sides saw the potential for a new kind of partnership, one based not on suspicion and mistrust, but on a shared commitment to using their advanced capabilities for the betterment of all. In the days and weeks that followed, a new spirit of cooperation emerged between humans and Filari. Joint research teams were established to explore the full potential of their combined technological prowess, while diplomatic channels were opened to address the underlying issues that had led to the rise of the rogue faction. But even as progress was made, the specter of that hidden enemy loomed large. Ivanova and her team knew that they were still out there, plotting their next move. And they knew that they would have to remain vigilant if they were to protect the fragile peace they had worked so hard to build. It was a daunting task, but one that Ivanova and her colleagues embraced with renewed determination. They had seen firsthand the incredible things that humans and Filari could achieve when they worked together in common cause. And they knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them as one, a united front against the forces that sought to tear them apart. As Ivanova looked out over the bustling space station, watching humans and Filari go about their daily lives side by side, she felt a sense of hope and purpose that she had never known before. They had come so far, had overcome so much, to reach this point. And she knew, with a certainty that went beyond words, that they would not let this chance slip away. The future was theirs to shape, theirs to build, and build it they would, one day, one discovery, one small act of trust at a time. For in the end, that was what mattered most. Not the grand gestures or the sweeping proclamations, but the quiet, everyday work of building bridges and forging bonds. It was a work that would never be finished, a journey that would always have new horizons to explore. But it was a work that Ivanova and her fellow travelers embraced with open hearts and unshakable resolve. For they knew that, in the end, it was not the destination that mattered most, but the journey itself, and the companionship of those who walked it by their side. As the newfound spirit of cooperation between humans and Filari blossomed, the joint investigative team worked tirelessly to uncover the truth behind the rogue faction and their sinister plans. Piece by piece, they assembled a picture of a group that had been working in the shadows for years, slowly infiltrating key positions on both sides of the partnership in preparation for their grand move. But what that move was remained frustratingly elusive. Despite all their efforts, Ivanova and her team seemed always to be one step behind, chasing down leads that turned into dead ends and unraveling plots that turned out to be mere distractions. It was a maddening game of cat and mouse, made all the more difficult by the need to maintain secrecy. They knew that if word of their investigation were to leak, it could spark a panic on both sides and undo all the progress they had made. And so they worked in silence, trading whispers in shadowed corners and chasing down rumors in the depths of the station's underbelly. They followed the money, the power, the flow of resources and information, seeking always the hidden hand that guided it all. Weeks turned into months, and still the answer eluded them. But just as it seemed that they might never find the truth, a breakthrough came from an unexpected quarter. It was a young Filari engineer, a brilliant but troubled soul who had always seemed on the fringes of the community. She had been working late one night, lost in a tangle of code and equations, when she stumbled across something that made her blood run cold. It was a hidden subroutine, buried deep within the station's life support systems, a piece of malware so sophisticated and insidious that it had escaped detection by even the most advanced security protocols. And as she dug deeper, she realized that it was no ordinary virus. It was a kill switch. With mounting horror, the engineer realized that the rogue faction had planted a virtual bomb at the very heart of the station, a bomb that, when triggered, would shut down the life support systems and vent the station's atmosphere into space. In one fell swoop, they could eliminate both the human and Filari leadership and send the partnership crashing down in flames. The engineer barely had time to sound the alarm before the faction made their move. In a coordinated strike, they seized control of key systems across the station, locking out Ivanova and her team and giving themselves free rein to carry out their plan. It was a moment of pure chaos and terror, as humans and Filari alike scrambled to understand what was happening and to mount a defense. But amidst the confusion and the fear, Ivanova and her inner circle kept their heads. They had been preparing for this moment, even if they hadn't known its exact shape. They had laid their own plans and contingencies, built their own network of allies and assets. And now, with the fate of the station hanging in the balance, they put those plans into motion. It was a desperate, brutal struggle, fought in the corridors and control rooms of the station, in the cold vacuum of space and the searing heat of engineering. The rogue faction fought with the ferocity of true believers, willing to sacrifice everything for their twisted cause. But Ivanova and her team fought with the strength of those who knew that they were the last line of defense, the only thing standing between their people and oblivion. They rallied the loyal, they improvised weapons and tactics, they pushed themselves beyond the limits of endurance. And in the end, through sheer grit and determination, they prevailed. The kill switch was disarmed, the rogue leaders captured or killed, the station secured. It had been a closer thing than any of them wanted to admit, a brush with disaster that had left them all shaken and changed. But as the dust settled and the wounds began to heal, a new understanding began to dawn. The crisis had been a crucible, a moment of truth that had tested the strength of the human-Filari bond and found it unbreakable. In the face of the greatest threat they had ever known, humans and Filari had stood together. They had fought side by side, had bled for each other, had proven that their partnership was more than just a convenience or a political arrangement. It was a bond of the spirit, a connection that transcended species and culture and history. It was a promise, a covenant, a shared vision of a future where all sentient beings could live in peace and dignity. And as Ivanova looked out over the celebrating crowds, humans and Filari alike, she knew that that future was within their grasp. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges and setbacks, old wounds to heal and new bridges to build. But they would face those challenges together. As true partners and friends, they had seen the worst that the universe could throw at them, and they had emerged stronger, wiser, more committed than ever to the dream that had brought them together. The dream of a galaxy where the endless cycle of war and hatred could finally be broken, where the boundless potential of life in all its diversity could flourish and grow. It was a dream worth fighting for, worth living for, worth everything they had and more. And as the celebration stretched on into the artificial night, as laughter and song echoed through the halls of the station, Ivanova knew that that dream was no longer just a distant hope. It was a promise, a destiny, a future that they would build together, one day and one step at a time. And nothing, not rogue factions or ancient hatreds or the cold vastness of space itself, could stand in their way. In the aftermath of the thwarted attack, a new sense of purpose and unity swept through the human-Filari partnership. The bonds that had been forged in the crucible of crisis proved stronger than anyone had imagined, and the shared trauma of what they had endured only served to deepen the commitment on both sides to making their alliance work. Aided by the advanced technology of the Filari and the ingenuity and drive of humanity, great strides were made in the months and years that followed. The joint research teams that had been established in the wake of the cybernetics revelations made breakthrough after breakthrough, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in fields ranging from medicine to energy production to space exploration. New treatments were developed for diseases that had plagued both species for generations, while advances in clean energy technology and resource management brought an end to the scarcity and environmental degradation that had long blighted life on Earth and beyond. And as the partnership's reach extended ever further into the cosmos, new wonders and discoveries were uncovered at every turn. But perhaps the most profound change of all was the one that took place in the hearts and minds of the two peoples themselves. As they worked and lived side by side, learning from each other's cultures and ways of life, old prejudices and misconceptions began to fall away, replaced by a growing sense of kinship and shared destiny. Humans and Filari began to see each other not as aliens or rivals, but as fellow travelers on the great journey of existence, each with their own unique gifts and perspectives to offer, each an essential part of the greater whole. It was a transformation that did not come easily, and there were many moments of tension and misunderstanding along the way. But through patience, empathy, and a willingness to listen and learn, the two species slowly but surely found their way to a new understanding. At the forefront of this great work of reconciliation and progress stood Commander Ivanova and her team, the heroes who had brought their peoples back from the brink of catastrophe and set them on the path to a brighter future. They became the symbols of the new era, the living embodiment of all that the partnership could achieve when it worked together in common cause. Under their guidance and leadership, the station that had once been a flashpoint of conflict became a beacon of hope and cooperation, a shining city in the stars where beings from across the galaxy could come to learn, to create, to dream of a better tomorrow. And as the years turned to decades and the decades to centuries, the legacy of that first fateful contact between humans and Filari only grew in significance. The alliance they had forged became the cornerstone of a new interstellar civilization, a web of trade and diplomacy and cultural exchange that spanned light years and encompassed countless worlds. Through the sharing of knowledge and resources, the pooling of talent and vision, the civilizations of the galaxy were able to confront the great challenges of their time. From the threat of cosmic catastrophes to the mysteries of the mind, and the nature of reality itself. Breakthroughs in science and technology that had once seemed the stuff of fantasy became commonplace as the combined ingenuity of 100 species was brought to bear on the frontiers of the possible. Wonders were built and marvels uncovered as the sentient beings of the universe stretched their wings and dared to imagine a future beyond their wildest dreams. And through it all, the spirit of the human-Velari partnership endured, a testament to the power of cooperation and the indomitable will of those who had first dared to reach out across the stars and grasp the hand of the unknown. But even as the partnership blossomed and the galaxy marveled at its achievements, Ivanova, and those who had stood with her in those fateful days, never forgot the lessons they had learned or the price they had paid for their victory. They knew that the universe was vast and filled with wonders, but also with dangers and challenges beyond imagining. They knew that the bonds of friendship and alliance were precious things, to be nurtured and protected with constant vigilance and care. And they knew that, no matter how far they journeyed or how much they achieved, there would always be new frontiers to explore, new discoveries to make, new trials to face and overcome. It was a sobering knowledge, but also an exhilarating one, a reminder of the endless potential that lay within the sentient mind and the indomitable spirit, waiting only for the courage and vision to unleash it upon the cosmos. As Ivanova stood on the observation deck of the station that had once been her home and her battleground, gazing out at the glittering tapestry of stars and worlds that stretched out before her, she felt the potential stirring within her once again. The road ahead would be long and hard, she knew, and there would be moments when the darkness seemed to press in from all sides. But she also knew that she would not have to walk that road alone, that she had friends and comrades who would stand with her to the end, no matter what challenges lay ahead. And with that knowledge came a sense of peace and purpose that filled her heart to bursting, a certainty that, whatever the future might hold, they would face it together as one. As she turned to make her way back to the bustling heart of the station, ready to begin the next chapter of their great adventure, a final thought flashed through her mind. A message from the stars themselves, whispered on the cosmic winds. "You have done well, children of Earth and Vela," it seemed to say. "You have taken your first steps into a larger world and shown the galaxy what marvels can be wrought when different minds and hearts come together in common cause. But know this, your journey has only just begun, and the challenges that await you will test your strength and resolve to the utmost. For the universe is a vast and wondrous place, filled with mysteries and dangers beyond your wildest imaginings. So go forth, bold travelers, and let your light shine bright against the darkness. Remember the lessons you have learned and the bonds you have forged, and let them be your guide and your comfort in the trials to come. For though the road may be long and the night may be dark, you are not alone. You have each other, and you have the strength and wisdom of all those who have come before you, and all those who will follow in your footsteps. And with that strength, and that wisdom, and that unbreakable bond of fellowship and love, there is no force in the heavens or on the earth that can stand against you. So go forth, children of the stars, and claim your birthright. The future is yours to shape, and the universe awaits your touch. May your journey be long and your triumphs many, and may the light of your spirit never fade." With those words echoing in her mind and her heart, Ivanova stepped forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever lay ahead. And as she did so, she knew that, no matter what challenges the future might bring, they would meet them head-on, together, as one. For they were the heirs of a great legacy, the children of a dream that had been forged in the fire of adversity and tempered in the light of hope. And that dream would carry them forward, now and always, to the very ends of the universe and beyond.